What is up, nerds, gamers, amateur movie critics? I'm all those things, and that is why you are here watching Burke the Nerd. And today, hopefully my audio worked. Did it work? It did. Nice. Okay. Today I got the Everyday Geeks on for a great stream. As you know or don't know, I'm a part of the Everyday Geeks YouTube channel, which is a fantastic channel just about to hit 200 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed over there, I keep forgetting that it's different on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed over there, you definitely should. It's worthwhile. Stormy, Timmy, Landon, they're all great guys, and together it's been a really fun, wild ride making content with those guys. They do a lot of trailer reactions and also a lot of great podcast episodes similar to what we're going to be recording today. So if you like what we're doing here, go over and check that out as well, and this will also be put on their channel. So I'm going to bring the two of them in as soon as I realize my mistake that I messed up the screen capture. But once I fix the screen capture, we're going to bring them in. Aha! There we go. I got it. We got the two of them in here today. Landon from Boulder Doobies, but also over here on Twitch, but also from Everyday Geeks, and Stormy821, also from Everyday Geeks. What is up, guys? Good to see you. It has been a minute since I've been able to be on content, but we found a good middle ground. We're going to do a little bit of both today. Talking about Godzilla versus Kong. So we're going to get into this in the next about hour or so, and then at the back half, I think Landon's going to stick on for a Loki trailer reaction, my first trailer reaction, his as well, and then we're going to get into the Black Widow trailer reaction, which will also be my first one, and the Space Jam. So that'll be all in the back half, but right now we're talking Godzilla versus Kong. Let me first say thank you to Mike Porter for extending your tier 1 sub through May, dude. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. You're seriously the best and the best supporter I could ask for, man. Then we got EJ Rich Alyssa, hello. Darth Pascal, better not. If you say one bad thing, I'll probably agree with you. I have some interesting critiques of this, so it'll be definitely interesting to dive in. Rage Starved, what is up, Eddie? Good to see you. I really love that action scenes, though. Fighting could have been between the monsters were incredible. Yeah, we're going to get into that. So first of all, we're going to be talking about Godzilla versus Kong. I'm not sure if we should dive right in or maybe talk a little bit about you guys have both seen the movie, I'm sure. What were your thoughts on Godzilla versus Kong? Impressed? Not impressed? Just kind of first reactions here.
Initial reaction from me was I expected it to be this monster movie where a lot of it took place. It was a fight. It was like just huge action after huge action. It didn't disappoint. But as usual in this type of movie, the human parts are really the disappointing side of things. The dialogue, the story they try to set up around it is the struggle. So that's kind of my initial reaction to it.
Okay.
Some people in this community will know this because I talked about it a lot, but I love the MonsterVerse. I love those Godzilla and Kong movies. I think Godzilla versus Godzilla King of the Monsters was the best of them before this one, because I think this one took the throne away from that movie.
Yep.
I can agree with Landon to an extent on the human characters, but I'm going to say that the human characters in this show, in this movie, were better than in the previous movies. I think the previous movies, the human characters lacked a lot more. And I think that's for the main reason that it actually had less humans in it this time around. But to be honest, like the little girl and her adoptive mother, I think them characters were like really good in my opinion. Not really good, but like they were okay. I get what Landon's saying about the other characters. They were kind of whack in my opinion.
Yeah, and
especially the Millie Bobby Brown character. I still don't like her.
Oh, there's going to be a lot to go into that as well. And I think we're going to go ahead and definitely at the end of our critiques and compliments to this film, we definitely have to go through and see how our rankings match up against each other for the 4 films, as well as talk about some future implications. We'll get into that in a second. Let me quickly, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat as well. Galaxy Man, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. And we're talking some Godzilla versus Kong. If you're into that, stick around. If not, stick around anyway. Let's see. Darth Pascal said we all know who could beat Mecha Godzilla, and Kong all at the same time. Luke Skywalker. No,
Yes.
no, he can't.
The ultimate battle bracket.
That is the reason Luke Skywalker will never appear in a battle bracket ever again. Which, by the way, I have the next
Unless it's
matchups.
against other versions of himself.
Unless
right?
it's up,
'Cause
yeah.
He could battle himself.
Oh yeah, I
but
might
nobody
do
else.
like I might do a Star Wars battle bracket once just to see how funny it
please,
gets,
no.
just to see how
But you also
chaotic it gets.
A
I
Luke battle bracket.
yes,
Luke from episode 4.
please.
I mean, you
Oh
could
my
put
God, you
baby
could.
Luke in there.
You could
That'd
put
be
every
brutal.
version of Luke in there. Oh my God, that would get so chaotic. Yeah, I think also Ray Star's poor character usage. I agree. Tim, what is up? Good to see you, man. Really appreciate you. Thank you for coming out, man. I always appreciate when you can. I know you've been busy. I know you're dealing with a lot. Thank you for being here when you can. It does make it hard though. You don't want to take away from the monster. So that's a good question. I'll kind of point to you guys for. Do you think that there is an intentional lack in character development, lack in character stories because of the emphasis on the monsters? Do you think that if they were to advance the character stories, the human characters, do you think that would take away from the big monster moments and the monsters as a whole?
I think that's definitely, and that's the thing that was in the first Godzilla and in King Kong Skull Island. Those movies heavily featured the human characters, and it kind of like became like humans in a movie about Godzilla and Kong, and like completely taking all the screen time from those two kaiju's. Now, Godzilla King of the Monsters is kind of like another story where they like try to do a fusion of having as much monster as much human characters in it, but that didn't really work to many people. And but this movie is like, yeah, I can agree with that. Like it's really let the it's really let Godzilla and Kong shine, and especially Kong, because this was kind of like a Kong Skull Island 2.2 in my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, Stormy, I would actually have to agree with you. I think that, it's tough to find balance with human story versus, Godzilla Kong storyline and how you integrate all those plot pieces together. No one's really done it successfully quite yet with any of these movies, unfortunately. So it's just finding that right balance because it does exist somewhere or has to somehow. I feel like they got close here. And it's not that I'm looking for these like great character arcs from these like the human side of this, but we didn't need the apex interaction a whole lot. We probably could have used more backstory with the adopted child and her mom and like their experience and all of that compared to what we got with apex and even what we got with like some of the other storyline around just like the human side of this, like I guess it was monarch technically.
Kyle Chandler's character, he was completely useless in this movie. Why was he even in? To throw like 2 or 3 lines, like you could have just left him out. So,
which one is that?
Yeah.
Which character?
It's the father of Millie Bobby Brown's character.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I already forgot the names.
Yeah.
I love that actor, and he's so underutilized in that role. If you guys have ever watched
no,
Bloodline, that movie, that show is incredible, and he brings it in that.
And he was the best human character in King of the Monsters, and he was completely underused in this one. So yeah, it is what it is. But
so
I mean,
the question I would have then to kind of add on to that, because I think that from my perspective, it's I feel like it's partially an excuse, right? Like, the human characters are bad, but we have to focus on the monsters. But like that doesn't mean that the human stories can't tell a compelling story. Maybe that does take away bandwidth from your team that's writing the story. And we're like, all right, well now we have to start thinking about how to make a compelling human story as well. But and I think maybe you get into the question of do we take, so I'm starting to kind of think against myself here because I'm starting to think, well, you have to, as a writer, to tell a good story for characters, you do have to give them enough screen time to tell that story. So that does make it a little more challenging when you're trying to contrast that to a big monsters. And I would wonder, like what could they do? So you guys, am I wrong? You both think that the human element it's kind of okay that it's where it's at? Or do you say Landon's got some hesitation? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, like I guess I don't know what more I can expect
Okay.
technically from them when it comes to the human side of these stories.
Yeah.
We've already kind of seen so many different narrations of Godzilla and Kong. Now that, there's always the human element, but why can't it just be a story, that's like narrated? I mean, imagine if this whole thing was just narrated from
Mhm.
like
David
Kong's
Attenborough.
perspective. Like somebody, right? Like somebody's easily capable of doing this and providing all the context that the humans had to provide for us.
Yeah.
When like you can pull the human story out of Godzilla versus Kong and it still stands on its own. The
Yep.
issue is the human story only kind of retracts from the rest of everything that was developed, but it
Wow.
does hold that necessary like exposition for everybody to understand what's going on, to move the plot forward, to take the
Absolutely.
action and help us understand, the sequence of events as they're happening. So it was well put together, and it's probably my favorite of all the MonsterVerse movies up to this point because of how well it was done. Not only the action scenes with Kong and Godzilla, but also like it's the best human story they've told up to this point, and that's saying something for still how bad it was, right? Like it's
Yeah.
been bad before, and this is a significant upgrade from what we've seen in the last couple movies.
Dude, and I'm going to say one thing about this movie. One of like some of the best CGI and VFX I've ever seen in my entire life in a movie.
Yeah.
It looked so like Hollow Earth. That looked so amazing in my
Yeah.
opinion, man.
And honestly, yeah, I think this is really good though. Like, saying there's different ways they could have approached the movie, and you're not taking it from the, oh well, the human element is bad, which it is, but you're not taking it from that approach. I like that you're taking the approach of
Mhm.
they could have omitted it in place of taking a different approach entirely. That their approach was wrong, not and the writing is an issue because of that. I like that. Really quickly, let me just address some stuff in the chat. Mike, it is good to see you, man. Lisa as well. Hello. It is always good to see both of you in here. Morgan Freeman, narrator. I mean, you're not wrong. The question is, so your approach would be so. Landon, you suggested a narrator approach. I'm kind
Yeah.
of thinking some other interesting ways you could do it, and I'm wondering if you approach it. There's other elements, right? Could you approach it from a single bystander standpoint and do a I'm trying to think of a good parallel, Cloverfield, where you take
Yeah.
could you make like a horror POV type element as somebody that's on the sidelines, or and could you do something like that? Well, you'd have to restructure this movie. Obviously, this movie took place in a lot of different places. How, but if you were to, could you make a movie successful that its two main characters are Godzilla and Kong?
Okay,
These two
so
characters that can't speak.
let me just say this really quickly. If you have seen Dunkirk, you know a film does not need a lot of dialogue to be a successful film. It is all about the sequences. It is all about the scenes you shoot
Do
and the
Yep.
cinematography
you
that
want to
you
hear something
provide.
terrible?
So you can have a film that has like no dialogue and it works.
Do you want to hear something terrible? Absolutely
You
terrible.
didn't like Dunkirk.
No, it's worse. It's much worse. I was in Los Angeles when Dunkirk came out, and my friend, he was like, yeah, there's a really cool Dolby IMAX theater down the road. He's out in like Irvine. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's go. It was pretty late, and I was kind of jet lagged because I would gotten there the day before. And
Oh no.
we go out, and they sell beer there. And I'm like, oh, cool, I'll get a beer and I'll watch the movie. And if you know anything about me, um, it's not that I get drunk easily, but if I take a single sip of beer, there's something mentally in my brain that tells me, oh, it's time for bed. And so I didn't even finish the first beer. I sat down at the
Oh,
theater, Dunkirk, like one of the front rows, and it was blaring, and it had the huge the special audio, right? And I'm
yeah.
sitting there, it is blasting. I fall asleep in the first 5 minutes. And if you know the first 5 minutes of the movie, it is loud and it's
Oh, yeah.
chaotic.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I slept the whole movie. I never sleep through movies. The only other one I can remember is when I pulled an all-nighter in like 8th grade, and I walked to the mall and I watched it like 11 a.m. Dark Side of the Moon, Transformers Dark Side of the Moon. I fell asleep during that. And that's like the only other time I can remember ever falling asleep in a movie theater. and it was like
Oh,
it was I've never seen Dunkirk after that. I missed the movie experience, and I know it's good. I know I'd love it, but I missed it, and so I can't relate to your metaphor, and I had to kind of caveat that.
You're good.
talking
So-
about talking about falling asleep in theaters, I fell asleep in the summer watching Tenet, and I had to
What?
go back.
I still haven't seen
watching-
Tenet.
Yeah, Tenet. Yeah, no, we're not going to talk about it. It was a good movie, but it was too. My brain couldn't handle it, so I just fell asleep.
Yeah, so like it's not that you need dialogue or even narration technically. I mean, you can tell a compelling story and have things make sense just with, the proper like score and everything
Right.
in a film. And I wouldn't necessarily say you cut out all the human pieces of it, but I mean, if you were to go that route, you got to narrate it somehow, and you got to give either Kong a voice or Godzilla a voice or both of them a voice, and have a narration piece from either side.
Like a literal voice.
It would, yeah, like a literal voice, like not like they would speak something in the movie, but as like a narrator would literally be like providing you their inner thoughts, their plan, like giving you the exposition you need to understand that you get from humans in these types of movies. You get
Or-
all the value that people bring inside of these monster movies is forwarding the plot, moving to the next conflict, moving to the next action sequence,
Okay.
understanding this company's, in this movie, Apex Mechanics,
Right.
their plot to reveal Mecha Godzilla and basically take out all of the kaiju, take out Godzilla, take out Kong, and have, this all ruling being that would be controlled by the
Yeah.
humans.
I actually have a great
We also-
idea
we
for
could
how to do
honest-
that. Oh, go ahead, Stormy.
Without needing, we could get there without needing the human element and have just Mecha Godzilla. And I'm sure because Mecha Godzilla is technically connected to a human, they already have a voice. There's already a voice integrated for them. So it's like there's
Okay.
ways to do it without a lot of human story if you want to focus on developing Kong and Godzilla. But these movies are all about action and action sequences and complete destruction of cities, and it works. I love it. We all watched it. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just, if they're trying to really win any sort of like award or anything, be in contention for cinematography,
Right.
scene, shot, whatever it is, it's, you're not
not
going to be
there.
there
Yeah.
because you're not at that level, because
Absolutely.
the human element is pulling the film down.
Stormy, did you have something
And
out there?
they'd almost be better silent.
Yeah, I was thinking like, and this is something that would work very well with Kong. The first Rise of the Planet of the Apes, where the apes are beginning to become more smart, and they start to like speak to each other through sign language, and you see in like watching the movie, you get these subtitles underneath the screen.
Yep.
Why couldn't they do that with Kong in this movie? Because he clearly showed emotion, and he was doing sign language. So you could have just done that with Kong the entire movie. And to be honest, if you kept that little girl character and her mom together with Alexander Skarsgård character, you could have cut out every other character in the movie, to be honest, because they were just unnecessary.
That's fair.
Yeah,
And I have some critiques of the movie I'll get into in a second, but I have some thoughts on this too. Some ways they could have done it in addition. I would really like to see what if we saw the whole movie through a helicopter news reporter. And that was the whole and so the whole movie was this dude that was basically his whole job was to follow King Kong. And like that's his whole thing. He just I mean, there's these huge kaiju. Of course they're gonna like follow. Of course you're gonna have somebody assigned to following this. And you could even like interrupt it with like news reports, or like they talk about news reports with like what's going on with Apex, or like they could do all these different things, but we're trying to piece together what Kong's going through this whole time while everything else is happening. And so I think that could be a really interesting way to do it. But yeah, I don't know. Mike Porter said Kong would sound like Homer Simpson and Godzilla would sound like Bob from Bob's Burgers. And then Ray Sharp says you get two movies, one from Kong's point of view and one from Godzilla's point of view. I was thinking about that. That'd be really interesting if you saw both and then like you had an ending that was like a separate I don't know if it's a separate like video, and like you watch both, and they both lead up to the conflict at the end. And it was like separate. I don't know if that'd be interesting or not, but
I mean, so just like parse it out, just kind of like the Snyder Cut did.
yeah,
They
like
parse it
that.
in the movie and give us like part 1 Kong, part 2
Yep.
Godzilla, and then it's Godzilla versus Kong, and then we just see the action we saw at the end, but tell more individualized stories.
Right.
Show Godzilla and what his plan is, and how he's tracing Kong or following Monarch
Right.
and everything else like that. So
Something that I found really ridiculous, and this is actually something that came out 2 days ago. So Kong showed a lot of emotion. Now, Toho, the original creators of Godzilla, they literally demanded Warner Brothers and Legendary not to make Godzilla have emotions in this movie. And I just
Interesting.
think that's ridiculous, man. Because like seeing some of those old Godzilla Toho movies, they were a lot more ridiculous than having Godzilla have some emotion.
Well, it's like that was the thing that I had a problem with. Is like it didn't. I got Godzilla's motives, but is he not just trying to be the apex predator? Like, is he not like trying to save anyone? Like, it seems like it's just a coincidence that he fights everyone in these
No,
movies.
look, Godzilla in this movie is just like, yo, you can be King Kong, but I'll still be God. So
yeah, I
he,
think it's like a
yeah,
difference there, Stormy. Like they were trying to establish Godzilla as the king of monsters, as they just had done, but Kong is king of, the Hollow Earth,
mm-hmm,
and I think that it's distinctive. They're trying to basically say Godzilla is going to exist only in, the human side of the world or the Earth,
yep,
and he is the king of that realm. And Kong comes from the Hollow Earth, and he is king of that realm.
yep,
So
So,
that was the distinction they were trying to pull
oh,
off there. That's why both of them survived, and there was actually a third party involved in the movie. Because if you
wow,
listen to any of the interviews that have happened with I think the director, they didn't put a post credit scene in intentionally because they didn't want to tie themselves somewhere. They wanted to actually
yep,
leave it open ended so that when the next Kong movie comes up, they can start fresh from anywhere with anybody. When the next Godzilla movie comes up, they can start fresh anywhere with whatever story, and they still both exist in their own separate worlds. And just Kong will have to be, in Hollow Earth, and Godzilla will have to be somewhere within the human realm.
I
yep.
really like that you made that distinction. I did not grab that. Mike, it is definitely just a popcorn movie for sure. Hollow Earth prequel could be interesting. The thing is like
Yeah.
they did kind of hint at this future for it. I would like to note King Kong would have gotten bodied by that like snake lizard thing if those humans weren't there. He would not have been King Kong anymore. He would have been dead. And that was just a small side note that I had to
So
make.
the interesting thing that I caught in this film, Kong is still growing,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's very clear from Skull Island till now. He's still
Oh, like
growing now, I
still
think.
growing.
Like he's still growing.
Oh,
Like, did you see how big that cave was that he entered in Hollow Earth? Right?
yeah,
Imagine
I didn't
just
think
like
about that.
how much larger these these beings get. We haven't even seen potentially a full-grown Godzilla yet. And
Yeah,
Godzilla is 300, 400 feet. Kong was relatively that height. I'd say 300, 315
yeah,
if we're going to really
Yep.
put it there. This movie, we know he's getting bigger. We know this is developing and continuing. So like Kong could eventually be like barely able to walk into that cave, right? Like just imagine him at like his prime. He's still an infant, as they said in Skull Island, and I don't see how we've gone 5 years and he's even close to full grown. If he is however old they say he
Oh,
is,
but
there's no way 5 years or however long, 70, sorry, 30, 40 years, I think, is when
yeah,
they put Skull Island
yep,
in. So the 40 years, I don't see how he develops to his physical peak in 40 years if he's
yeah.
supposed to live for hundreds and thousands of years, right? Like that just
mm-hmm,
doesn't cut it. So if he's already 700 years old, maybe his peak is at 1,000 or whatever it
yep,
is. And same with
At least
Godzilla.
the wingard cut.
These beings just don't die. They're titans for a reason.
So
yep,
I first of all I love that because I didn't even think about the distinction there of the king of the Hollow Earth versus Godzilla being probably dealing with like extraterrestrials move on forward. I think we could imagine.
He shot enough beams into space. I mean, come on, he's got to hit something.
Right. What happens next? Like, what do you want to see? Where do you think we go from here?
What I want to see is, and this is actually something, because it was trending on Twitter yesterday. # continue the MonsterVerse.
Yep. Is it a debate?
It has to happen. No, it is literally it's no. They never really said that they were going to cancel it, but I think if Godzilla vs Kong wouldn't have been a hit, because it has, like, for Corona times, it has like massive box office right now, and it was a huge hit for HBO Max. So, but I can see a way where if this movie wasn't good, that would have been the end. But we already know that we are getting this spin-off series about Monarch on HBO Max. Yep. So that's one thing that's going to happen. And to be honest, we could get like a movie about Kong in Hollow Earth. You have like Monarch in there also with the Outpost right now. There are a lot of monsters from Toho originally created that Godzilla still is able to go up against. You have a, and I'm going really Toho Godzilla nerdy right now, but you have monsters like Hedorah, Gigan, Biolante, the biggest one, Destroyer. You guys can search them up. They are those monsters, like, recreated with a big level CGI budget.
Yeah,
would be like even doper than beings like Mechagodzilla and King Ghidorah, in my opinion. So that's my opinion. I want this thing to continue. I want to get those other kaijus in an American produced Godzilla movie. I want to see that. At all costs.
Yeah. Also, Eddie suggested a prequel with a nice narrator. Yeah, I'd be down.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking like a Kong Origins. Type movie. Give us the early clash, or what led to the divide, and what led to most of them dying off or being killed, or even give us multiple movies that lead up to that. Give us like Kong Origins, Godzilla Origins, and then literally like a movie to bring it together, because that is where I think a lot of the interest is now, especially that we've kind of, I guess, gone in the Hollow Earth direction with the MonsterVerse, and we're accepting that that's what's happening and that's what's going to be established in the universe moving forward. So if they're going to build anything, build the beginning, build what you just teased everybody with and just brought into existence. Show the initial exploration, go back to the Antarctic discovery, go back to all that, and show it from, and maybe even like do a human movie that is literally just about that discovery, like the expedition to Hollow Earth, and then do Kong Origins and Godzilla Origins, and then or Titan Origins, even, right? Like Kaiju Origins. There's so many opportunities to spin off of what movie they just created, because they can go forward and build Kong and Godzilla together in separate properties as they have been, or they can go back and still lump everything back together because it'll be before the divide.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good point. By the way, Lisa, take care. You might have already been gone by now. Give us Kong versus Godzilla cut, of course. And Mike Porter's flexing his roller coaster skills over there. I think there's so much they can do. I can't help but feel like they did use a lot of their IP at the gate in 4 movies. And personally, I know that they have a ton that they can do, but it feels like they've utilized a lot of their big IP at right off the gate. Not to say they couldn't recycle it, right? Mechagodzilla can come back, and I'm sure he's come back many times in different forms, right? So there's no reason to say Mechagodzilla can't return. There's no reason to say that Godzilla and Kong can't have another fight down the road. And King Ghidorah, that's a whole different thing, and Mothra is still a big thing. Like, there's still a ton they can do. I'm curious, where do you think that Monarch is going to lead? Obviously, we know this Monarch HBO Max series is coming. Where could that go?
Can I go ahead, Landon?
Mm-hmm.
So what I hope with this Monarch series, I hope that the big movies for this MonsterVerse stay with the old Toho monsters, with the old kaiju from those set of series. What I want Monarch to do is actually like creating new new kaijus like the skull crawlers, like the mutos, like the creatures we saw in Hollow Earth. I wanna get them to focus on those like little smaller monsters. I wanna
Okay.
base them around those.
Like
Another thing that I
X-Files or something?
yeah another thing that I want to see, and this is actually something that they have talked about a lot in the past, and that they actually confirmed is something that can happen with like Warner Brothers rights, like with their wi- because those are both two franchises that they own. Is having the MonsterVerse crossover with the Pacific Rim universe, and you could have
Oh.
Kaijus versus Jaeger Max.
So
I think that would be a great thing.
the question is, how do those coexist? My impression is that unless that takes place in the future, does Pacific Rim take place in the future?
No, you can just reboot Pacific Rim and have Pacific Rim like the Jaeger suits in these movies. Like Pacific Rim like Uprising was kind of whack and
Yeah.
kind of shit. So that franchise isn't going to continue. But I'm not talking about Pacific Rim directly. I just want Jaeger suits in these
That would be
MonsterVerse
cool.
movies.
Basically,
That would
like
be super cool.
yeah, in a future property, bring in like a Jaeger suit inside of the
Okay.
MonsterVerse and have that exist. Right, just pull that from another one of their properties. I think that's where Stormy's going.
Yep.
Ah. Yeah, but I mean the big question though is a Jaeger strong enough? I mean, can a Jaeger beat I don't
Probably
know,
not.
Megazord, or could he beat guys, if you haven't voted the mech battle, if you haven't been a part of the mech battle bracket, it's happening right now. The Jaeger from Pacific Rim's in it. That's why I'm talking about that. But Mike Porter said, "Give us the monster squad where we see bad monsters monsters have to
here's
fight
a-
so they can less
here's
person
a-
time. And do that before you consider Godzilla vs Kong. It was confused, so it would confuse the timeline. Oh wait, DC's already done that.
Here's a great here. Can
Yeah,
I
go
share
for
my
it.
plan?
Go
What
for
I
it.
would do? So say Godzilla spins off in another trilogy. So we got 3 more Godzilla movies.
Okay.
I think the first one should be Godzilla versus a character like Gigan, and Gigan is this kaiju in Toho universe. He's like this bug creature with these two like knife shaped arms, and he's really strong. He's like one of the best villains in that franchise.
Yep.
Um, the second movie should be Godzilla fighting Biollante and Hedorah. Hedorah is like this like pollution monster, and Biollante is this plant-like creature. And what I would do is actually bring in another kaiju from that franchise called Anguirus, and Anguirus is like um, Godzilla's best friend, to say it that way, in those in those Toho MonsterVerse movies.
Okay.
Now the last one would be Godzilla versus Destroyer, and what I would do with that movie is make the Justice League of kaiju creatures. So you have like creatures like Godzilla, Kong, Anguirus, Mothra. You have Rodan that's still around. You have those like kaiju's going up against a creature like Destroyer, because
Yep.
Destroyer is like the most like powerful creature in that whole thing. So like a MonsterVerse kind of Justice League. That's something I
Okay.
want to see.
Okay. I like
So
that.
Burke, I'm gonna go back and answer your question about where Monarch the series is going. I think it is the obvious point for it to start is right where Kong versus Godzilla ended, and have them being exploring Hollow Earth and the other creatures, other beings, other anomalies and things that they discover there, and then take back into the human realm, right? Because now that they have been able to successfully travel into and out of Hollow Earth, they will continue to, as they've already shown, they're going to be monitoring Kong. They'll probably be monitoring the whole area, and I think that will lead to the discovery, the creation of this like monster, more of the monster verse than we've already seen. Maybe some newer characters, newer ones that have been introduced throughout other movies that we
Okay.
haven't yet seen. And ultimately, Monarch is going to set the stage for Kong getting another another solo movie, or Godzilla getting another solo movie, or even potentially having another series spin off of Monarch or play off of Monarch, right? The glory of HBO Max right now is having the flexibility that they have, especially when it comes to movie releases and series. And if they can continue to tie their series to their popular films, as they're doing with Godzilla versus Kong and Monarch, I think they're going to be successful. And this is just going to hopefully develop the universe. And it might be entirely human centric, which is what we would expect.
Right.
But then that gives us the human side of the story that we need to make the next Kong movie or Godzilla movie make sense.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I have a follow-up interesting question. We're talking about what they could do and all these paths they could take. I would like to note that another very all over the place franchise is also owned by Warner Bros. And that is DC.
No, that's not going to happen.
Listen, I'm just saying, Flash is running all around. Be really interesting if he was running through different multiverses and he was running through Hong Kong just getting decimated. And it was just like, oh. He just runs through Godzilla and Kong fighting above him. He's like, I gotta get out of this multiverse. I'm just saying, I mean, I'd watch
Totally
Superman fight
plausible.
Godzilla.
I would actually enjoy having. So DC's already jacked themselves up
Right.
enough, right?
Exactly.
Their multiverse is so weird. And now with the announcement of like the new Batman movie being on
Yep.
Earth 2 and all these other ones being somewhere else, and just stop or
Right.
integrate it all. So the option here is just go all in. Godzilla versus Kong, Looney Tunes, every property you own as Warner Brothers, you now have in the same potential multiverse, and the Flash can go all around it, and you can have little callbacks, little tie-ins, little bits and pieces that connect from other properties, and it'd be a lot of fun. Be a great way
Right.
to have a bunch of Easter eggs in your films, but it'd get far-fetched really quickly, I think.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
feel like they'd have to limit it to some degree, but I feel like, yeah, it'd be interesting to see Godzilla versus Superman or Kong versus Batman.
Yeah.
Kong versus Batman. Batman makes like literally a mechanical giant ape that he controls.
Oh my God!
The
Right?
Bat Ape, and it's
dude, I'd watch that. I'd totally watch that.
and it's wearing its own Batman armor.
Stop.
I'm going to show you another one.
Funny.
A rebuilt Mechagodzilla versus Cyborg. Do it.
Oh.
But like a Megazord cyborg.
Yep.
Or even imagine just like Godzilla gets dropped, like Flash accidentally creates like some sort of vacuum that pulls Godzilla into their timeline, and Godzilla is rampaging because he just doesn't know what to do, and then the Justice League has to like fight him off and put him back to get him back into a portal to like send him back home. And it's just like they're fighting him because he's just in the wrong place freaking out, and it's just like this Justice League versus Godzilla. Like, I just think it'd be so cool to get something like, why not?
Absurd.
When you're that, like, when Warner Bros. Is already throwing everything at the wall, like, why not? Like, it's like, it's not like anybody over there cares about canon. So you're telling me you can't do a multiverse story with Godzilla and King Kong and Batman? Like, I don't buy it. Like, it's the same reason I don't get why the Snyderverse doesn't continue, which is a whole different thing, and I know we're going to save that for when we can do it. And we're trying to do a Snyder Cut podcast, get to it. But definitely, like, I think it'd be so cool just to see that. Other things I would like to see, I think I like the Pacific Rim idea. I'm wondering, to the point of, we've talked about how do you do a King Kong series, like, how do you do a King Kong movie if they're going into Hollow Earth? Because then you have to run the question of where's the human side come in. And I don't think personally that they're willing to do a Kong-centric story without humans. I just don't see it.
Yeah, they only need two. They only need two humans in that entire story.
But like
a little girl and her mom.
Monarch's in with the last scene of the movie. Monarch is in Hollow Earth. There are people in Hollow Earth studying, so you have the human element in that also.
Capcom versus D.
At
Yeah,
least
you're right.
present. Like the human element is present. It doesn't have to be like the forefront, right? I mean,
Yeah.
shoot, honestly, I would probably watch a Kong series or movie that was just him going around different locations in Hollow Earth, discovering things that were like subtitled or whatever, or like translated through this little girl.
Yep.
And just let him do his own thing, killing monsters, cleaning shit up. I mean, it's Skull Island, but like on a
Yeah.
whole
Yep.
nother scale. And now Kong is like 600 feet tall, and we're all like,
I want a
"What?"
mythic quest. I want him to have a
Yeah,
quest.
literally.
He's going to get this
Mhm.
weapon that's even better than that one.
Cave drawing prophecy that Kong has to fulfill by bringing like different elements from
Yep.
Hollow Earth to this one piece or place, and then that gives him or creates this, super weapon or axe,
Yeah.
or
Or he does find out
gauntlet
that part of
with
his
a bunch of
family is
stones
still
in it
actually
that
alive.
allows him to snap half the universe away. Whatever they want to do, who
Yeah,
cares?
I don't care.
But
Yeah.
at this point, like, do whatever.
Yeah, I'm down. I have another
something.
so kind of going past that, let's talk a little bit about this movie specifically, because we got into a little bit in the beginning. I'd like to talk about some specific critiques of the movie, then talk about some benefits of it, and then we can kind of wrap with kind of an overall impression and maybe our rankings. So this movie, I just have some thoughts off the top, and then I'll kind of open it to you guys. The first critiques I had, obviously, I stand with everyone else. The human elements were the worst part. We've talked about why and what they could do and if they should do anything. A new Street Fighter movie would be great, Eddie. I didn't see that. I personally, like, the human parts were bad, but it was more like it was just their choices. I think from a writing perspective, you can make the story human have humans in it, but it was like the way in which they chose to have humans in it, and the way in which they chose to do certain things, and how they made certain things work, I think were problematic. Like, I don't buy, like, such like large human structures always makes me weird. Like the fact that they already built a full tunnel, like a manual tunnel in Antarctica down into the thing, that was a problem for me. Like Apex's technology seemed a little bit like too far ahead. I get that they have to be that. But the biggest problems I had were the decisions of our main character, human characters. That little girl, she should not have been able to interact with King Kong. And I'm not saying that she shouldn't have been able, I'm not saying she shouldn't have been able to interact like herself, like she should, like the communication shouldn't have happened. That was, if that lady is responsible for her, she should not, even if you trust King Kong, should not have entrusted a little girl to be the one to try to communicate with King Kong. That is so risky to just be okay with. Like that, her guardian is terrible.
Kong's choice. It's Kong's choice ultimately, in my mind, to communicate with her, the little girl.
Yeah, but like
he has that connection with her. He doesn't have it with any other human being. That is why the adopted mother has to basically say, "That's okay. I accept this," because that's the only way only avenue Kong is willing to communicate.
But it feels like child endangerment. Like she should have.
Agreed.
Like she should have gotten her out of there. I don't know. I guess it's just a moral dilemma where it's like, do you risk the child's safety or do you risk having access to this super
but isn't
powered being?
So I agree with you. But isn't she the only like person or like the only indigenous person left from Skull Island? So if she's truly the only person left from Skull Island, or the only connection Kong has left to Skull Island, then he already has an emotional tie to that individual child. So whether we like it or not, or think it's child endangerment or whatever we think should happen, Kong is only going to communicate with that child. So if they want any chance of having an understanding of what's going on in his head, where he's at, and what he's doing, that child has to be involved, because she's like his only tie to home. And the whole theme of this entire movie is home.
Yep.
Finding Kong's home. Godzilla understanding his home is the human realm. Kong's home is Hollow Earth. He was never meant to be on Skull Island. He was there for a means to an end, and then clearly it ended, and the humans, brought him to the Monarch facility and decided that, what was best for him was to be caged and, under their surveillance. But now I think they realize he is truly at home in Hollow Earth, and they just have to let him roam and monitor Hollow Earth as they move
Right.
forward.
So then the other question I had, and Mike will definitely, I want to have that Hulk versus Kong versus Godzilla discussion in a second because that does sound great. But the first thing is, the next thing is, it was my impression that Skull Island was built around, like they built that cage around Skull Island. Was I wrong about that? Were they on Skull Island in the beginning? Because I thought it was there on
I
Skull
think
Island. They
so.
built the projector around him.
No, I think so. That was on Skull Island, I think, because they explained it.
So they gave it a location name, but it was a number. It was like Monarch Site something. And I
Yeah, but
don't know if that translates to Skull Island or not. I thought it was somewhere else because the reason that it was a problem was because Kong was getting too big for that facility. So they had to let him out. He had to find a new home, and they knew they couldn't take him back.
But didn't the Alexander Skarsgård character say, if we don't get him off Skull Island, Godzilla will come from him? Or is that a line that I just completely...
I feel like you're right. I feel like it was on Skull Island. I think maybe just the
Maybe.
containment space that they made, because I thought the only reason they moved King Kong was because they needed to move him to Antarctica.
But I thought they moved him at the end of Skull Island. Didn't they move him at the end of Skull Island because it was so difficult to get to Skull Island because of everything that took place there in that entire movie? It was such a struggle for just
people to get there.
Yeah, a few people to get there, let alone having a whole facility there. And like that doesn't track for me on my end.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
I'm so willing to go back and watch it because I'll probably watch it again anyways.
Yeah.
But like that part doesn't track for me. I thought that once they discovered Skull Island, the reason that the villager, that little girl, was so important to Kong was because she was his last piece of his home, and his last home was Skull Island. Right. So thinking about it in that manner and the connections they've built through the movie, I think that it's safe to say he had been removed from Skull Island from the end of that film.
Okay.
And that facility was either somewhere close or as close as they could possibly be to have a facility there, so that if they needed to get there, it wasn't far off. But I truly think it was not there. I don't think that's where he was.
Okay. I'm gonna Google it, see if I can find out. Because you're right. You're right. I was wondering that. It did seem weird.
I mean, they had to move him from somewhere, but ultimately they were going to a very specific location, and the only way, or Antarctica, and the only way they get there was from boat or via air, and they didn't want to go air for that long, so they tried boat. Godzilla obviously attacked at the beginning of the movie, and we end up where they're basically ballooning or helicarrying Kong all the way up to the Antarctica.
Yep. So it's saying here that they were on Skull Island. But it does seem weird because you're right. It's counterintuitive because in the beginning of Skull Island, the whole thing was no one can get there. It's really hard. So maybe they built technology.
Impossible.
I mean, I don't know. There's another question. Mike says how, and the other question I had was, along with getting there, how did they build this huge projector dome around King Kong without him beating the crap out of them? Because he was beating the crap out of everything on that island. You can't tell me that he was fine with just suddenly these people with huge construction site. Whole different thing. And maybe they friended the lady. I don't know. That seemed confusing. But then also the other question was like, was how. I still have the problem with them standing on the aircraft carrier and never gonna let that go. I did like that Godzilla did what I wanted him to do, which is just do the like seal shimmy up onto the ship and then climb up. I'm glad they did that because I was really afraid he was gonna leap out of the water and land on his feet. And I'm like, that is not happening, and that ship would be destroyed. But I'm accepted with it. Mike said, but Burke, what about the best thing in 2021 that dropped today? The second Loki trailer. Yeah, wait, that's the one I'm reviewing today, right? I'm doing that at in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We're almost an hour, so we can probably like.
Oh yeah, we want to do the rankings. The only other thing I had was the other human element that I had a problem with, and that was the only other problem I had with the movie, which was that the humans on Team Godzilla, Millie Bobby Brown and them. Their entire story, from a writing perspective, a writer basically said, our whole story for these three characters is to be wild conspiracy theorists that the only thing that they did to benefit the story was spill some liquor on a computer to short circuit the monster for a split second. We're not even talking about the fact that the monster had already detached from the system at that point, because of how they wrote it. So the monster wasn't even still connected to the servers at that point, or at least he shouldn't have been. But also, that's not how computers just like even work. Like that's just not what would happen. And oh my god.
Here's the thing. Those three characters were the worst, man. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, but
Brian Tyree Henry's character was just in there to throw stupid lines of jokes.
Right.
The other character from the actor like the kid who was in Deadpool 2, like what was his point in the movie? And then Millie Bobby Brown's character, look, I'm just going to say it. I love her as 11, but I don't like Millie Bobby Brown in other projects.
Right. Well, that's my point.
I don't like her in this.
You have to think from a writing standpoint, right? You write a character to have a service to the plot, right? Every character should have a service to the plot from a writing perspective, right? They don't have to be super relevant, but if you're focusing on a character, you'd assume they have some relevance to the plot, what's going on. You know, look at like Lord of the Rings is a perfect example where you have these characters that are all the way across the world, very similarly what's going on here, except their plots come together, right? So if you look at like Mordor, spoiler alert to Lord of the Rings, you should have watched it 20 years ago. You look at Return of the King, we haven't seen these characters haven't interacted with each other the whole time, but they lead this front on Mordor at the very end of the movie, and then the actions of these other characters affect what happened here, right? Those two characters, they all the characters on both sides, even if they weren't together, had a role to play in what happened. They distracted the everyone from Mordor so that they could put the ring in Mount Doom. So it was like the whole thing is like had a purpose. You look at those three characters, she informed her dad, but her dad and Monarch didn't do anything. So she didn't have any relevance there. They had this conspiracy about what Godzilla is doing, but that conspiracy didn't inform any of the other characters to do anything. They travel in a facility, and they inform us as the audience what's going on a little bit. But honestly, we also saw things from the villain's perspective. So we could have seen the villain's perspective without them being involved and still know what's going on. So they didn't service us even from like a meta perspective as to what's going on in the story. Then they finally make it there, and they're under Mechagodzilla. They don't help Mechagodzilla kill that monster. They don't help that monster fight Mechagodzilla in that cage. They don't even get discovered in that moment. They were just there to almost get stepped on. Then they get up there. They confront the villain after being captured. They don't kill the villain. They just witness Mechagodzilla kill the villain, right? So they didn't service the plot there. And then they pour the stuff on the computer, and even if you argue that that's a service to the plot, it didn't really actually help Godzilla or Kong fight them. If you're gonna make them do all of this traveling and do all this stuff, at least have one of their actions be actually significant to what they're doing. Also, another side note, why does every nerdy guy know how to like hack crazy things? Like I don't think people in movies know how hacking works, or they just really rely. Do they not realize how many people are software developers now? Do they not realize how much of the economy is relying on software developers now? Do they really think that people don't know that hacking doesn't work that way? I don't know. But it was just another like why those three characters could have been out of the movie, and we would have had everything we need to see the movie, what's going on.
Right.
And
like I'm gonna go back and say you don't need the human element here. You can have the apex storyline with Mechagodzilla being revealed, and you can literally walk away from the human element outside of the Kong interaction with that little girl, and the movie stands on its own. The monsters plus the little girl, and then that one apex scene where they reveal Mechagodzilla. That is it. That is all you need from the humans in this movie, and it still is a good movie. It's still a like 80 to 90% movie, hands down.
Yeah, you're right.
Can I say one thing that I really liked about Mechagodzilla in this movie? Actually, two things. Look, you have to know one thing coming out of King of the Monsters. Like, King Ghidorah hated Godzilla. He wanted him dead AF. That they used like Godzilla's King Ghidorah's consciousness to make
Yeah,
Mechagodzilla super cool.
I liked that. I did like that a lot.
The other thing, man, some of the things Mechagodzilla was able to do in this movie, his thrusters and like those punches he was throwing
So
with
cool.
like
So cool.
the blue I can't come
Yeah.
up with the word, but
So
you know
cool.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mechagodzilla was great in this movie.
Yep. Ultimately, the
so
fights were
I
incredible.
have one thing to say about your hacker depiction really quick is I think we've accepted as the general populace that in movies hacking is going to be something that is portrayed, but portrayed very inaccurately.
Yep.
Even though we all know that code is technically accessible through everything. So anything
Yep.
you do on the internet, anything you do, in any platform, any application, you have access to their code if you really want it. You
Right.
just have to know what that code means to actually be able to go do something. So yes, hacking is technically
Good
easy
stream, guys.
from the standpoint of physically doing it,
Yeah.
physical access, but the complications in understanding the language and the knowledge to know where to break that language so that the rest of the firewall and everything else breaks down is really what hacking becomes, right? It's the details that we never
Exactly.
show of where people know where to start, but getting there is very easy. To Mike's point about Darcy, it's like she's obviously intelligent enough to know where
Right.
to start
Yep.
and probably already knows programming language, so would have some benefit or at least skill set that would benefit her in that process
Yeah.
of hacking. Where I agree. Like some of this is just set up to be set up. It's like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
you're gonna hack this computer and you're gonna do this, right? But
Yep.
that's all for the plot of the movie, not really for the character becoming
Exactly.
a hacker, having this trait.
Cool. So let's kind of I really liked both sides, and this movie is ultimately a really fun movie to watch. I wish I could have seen it in theaters. Saw it at my home, but that's fine. We'll do about 4 more minutes until we kind of cap the Godzilla versus Kong discussion. We'll move into our trailer reactions. Land's gonna stick around for the low-key one. Stormy's got to head out. So I do want to ask you guys in the last couple minutes here, just really quickly, what is your 4? How would you rank the 4 movies?
All right, from bottom down upwards. 4 is probably Skull Island. Oh my god, Stormy.
Kong,
3
Skull Island.
4 is Kong Skull Island. But to be honest, still a good movie.
Yep.
Landon, I see you. Nah, it's my list, man. It's my list.
That's fair.
I didn't
3
say anything. I'm just shaking my head.
3 is Godzilla 2014. The movie that began all these other movies.
Yep.
2 is probably King of the Monsters, and then the first one is Godzilla vs Kong. I really like these.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was good.
All right, Landon, go ahead.
All right, so 4 is Godzilla 2014. I don't care what you want to say, Stormy. How much you want to try to pull for this movie? This movie was bad, and it was bad on a lot of levels. And hey, I loved the MonsterVerse aspect. I loved everything that they brought into it and the storyline that they tried to tell. That was a bad movie, man. That was a really bad movie. And I love Ryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen. Dude, that was a bad movie. All right, like end of story. That was terrible.
Oh my
But,
You know what
okay,
probably
cool.
was the worst thing about Godzilla 2014? That we had Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen playing
I
a
know.
couple who just 3 months earlier were playing brother and sister in
know.
Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yeah, it was ugly. But okay, so that's my 4. 3 is King of Monsters, Godzilla King of Monsters. The action was all there. The action was on point in that movie. It was the human element that ruined it for me. Millie Bobby Brown and her entire interaction with her dad. I didn't need any of that in that film. 0%.
Yep.
And then Kong versus Skull Island, because it actually has something to it. They're connecting to that movie more than any other movie that they're playing off of. So, and you could argue King of Monsters a little bit because of where Godzilla stands and how he comes in and some of the animations for Godzilla and things we haven't seen him do before that we only saw in King of Monsters. But I still think it's Kong Skull Island. And then yes, Godzilla versus Kong. If I had to rank them 2 through 4, they're like B, C movies. Godzilla Kong is like an A movie. This is a movie that brought people into theaters. This is a movie that is going to reinvigorate the theatrical experience for a lot of people. And it's a film that, as much as people want to hate on it, as much as people want to say whatever they want to say about the human interaction and everything we've been bashing on in this film, if you compare it to other things, other movies like this film crushes them. This film absolutely annihilates the other films inside of this MonsterVerse right now. And it's not even close. Like, it is a whole step above anything else that WB's put out. And you could argue there's very few WB properties even in the last 3 to 5 years outside of the Snyder Cut that could actually compete with this film.
Okay. I like it. So I'm going to give my last 4, and then we're going to cap out of here. Listen, I just went to the Rotten Tomatoes just out of curiosity. They're all 75. 3 of the 4 movies are 75% or 76%. Only one of them is 42%. Do you know which one that one is?
Godzilla 2014.
It's King of the Monsters. I was actually surprised.
Yep.
Just something interesting.
Many people didn't like that movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this. We got both Tims in the chat. It's a good day. By the way, Mike, thank you again so much, man. I do appreciate it. So let me just quickly say this doesn't affect my rankings because I actually had an interesting ranking. I'm gonna go with Godzilla vs. Kong is actually in my 4th place. And
all right,
I would like to caveat, I really like this movie, but it's not so much lower, but I don't know. I also have to caveat that I watched 2014 Godzilla before I really got into really into movies like this in the same way that I am now. So I have to say that there's probably a little bit of bias coming that way. Maybe some rose-colored lenses there. I'm going to go Godzilla vs. Kong is my last place. Then I'm going to go with King of the Monsters, then Godzilla, and then Kong Skull Island. And Kong Skull Island is my favorite of the 4. Godzilla and Kong Skull Island, both of them are kind of tied. I like close because I actually really liked Godzilla's initial tone of that movie. I don't know why. I really liked that movie. This morose.
I mean, the setup for his reveal is great. Right?
Yeah,
Godzilla's reveal in that film.
It's the tone. It's the tone of that whole film.
The whole freak out situation, and then some of the backstory they gave it. It's compelling, but it doesn't really add to the story they try to tell. Well, when the movie's done.
I'll say one thing about that movie that I don't like. I don't know how they came away calling a movie Godzilla. It's criminal that Godzilla was only in that movie for 5 minutes. That's criminal.
That's fair.
Like, I know where people are coming from, but I still like that.
And ultimately, I liked it as too. So, and that's the thing is we're gonna hopefully see more of it. I hope the MonsterVerse continues and we can keep having this discussion and keep adding to our rankings. Maybe one day we'll have this as large as the MCU rankings. We can have 23, and I can do a whole 2-hour thing with Mr. Otter where we go and we criticize everyone else's rankings of the MonsterVerse things. But until then, just thank you guys both for coming on again. Everyday Geeks on YouTube. Go check that out. And at Geeks Everyday over on Twitter. Landon's going to stick around with me, and we are going to do the Loki trailer review. Then I'm going to do the Black Widow and Space Jam ones as well following that. So we still got another hour to go, but I do want to say, Stormy, thank you so much for coming on. I know you got to dip out of here, and I will send you this, clip this. You're going to see this on the Everyday Geeks YouTube as well as on mine. So thank you so much, Stormy, for coming out, man.
You have to send it to Timmy.
All right, I'll send it to Timmy.
All right.
Yep.
And guys, if you haven't subscribed to Everyday Geeks yet, do that because we are almost at 200 subscribers.
Close, man. Very close.
Help us out.
And let's just say there's something else coming.
Yes. We can't talk about it, but
we can't talk about
coming.
It.
Hashtag the bells are ringing.
Hashtag the bells are ringing. I love it. All right, man. Stormy, thank you so much.
Guys, have a great day, man.
You too. All right.